Mangalam sadhu veshaya shishya chitta vilasine vidita kila vidyaya moksha vigna vighatine Swami Kashi nivasaya deshikaya viragine Chaitanyananda rupaya jivan muktaya mangalam Om Shanti 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 Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahe Om Shanti 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 Bolo Shri Sadgurudev Swami Sivananda Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Sadgurudev Swami Sivananda Maharaj Ki Jai Shanti Mantra Om Bhadram Karane Bhishrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyema Akshabirya Jatraha Stirairangais Tushtuvagum Sastanubhir Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swastina Indro Vridhashrabaha Swastina Pusha Vishvavedaha Swastina Starksyorarishtanemihi Swastino Brihaspatir Dadhatu Om Shanti 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 Today is our last class and we are going to conclude the study of the Mandukya Upanishad. In the previous sessions, the previous classes, we have studied up to the first 7 mantras. And yesterday we have seen the mantra number 7 was dealing with Turiya, with the last pada, the last part of the self. Today, what we are going to see how to apply the mantra Om into these 4 parts. Okay, this is basically what is left for us to do. We start with mantra number 8. Please chant after me. Soyamatma Adyaksharam Onkaraha Adhimatram Padamatra Matrascha Pada Akara Ukara Makara Iti Soyamatma Dhyaksharam Omkaro Adhimatram Padamatra Matrascha Pada Akara Ukara Makara Iti Saha Ayamatma Adhi Aksharam Omkaraha. So that same self, Saha, that Ayamatma, this self, Adhi Aksharam, when we look at it from the point of view of Akshara, of letters, it is Omkara. This is Om. So we were talking about the self as being divided into 4 padas, into 4 parts, right? Now the Upanishad is telling us the same self when it is divided into 4 parts. But when looked at as adhyakshara, as primarily from the point of view of letters, of aksharas, we call it Omkara, we call it Om. And from Adhimatra, Adhimatra is that which pertains to the measures. Here when Adhimatram, that which pertains to the quarters, okay, to the 4 different padas. The Upanishad says, Pada Matra. The padas, the different parts, are the matras, the measures. We are going to talk about the measures and see what are the measures. And he says, Matrascha Pada. And the matras and the measures, they are the padas. In other words, he says there is no difference between the different parts of the self and the different parts within the mantra Om. There is no any difference between them. What are the different parts of the mantra Om? It says Akara, Ukara, Makara, Iti. So the Om is being divided into 3 plus 1. Just as we had the padas divided into 3 plus 1, also the Om is being divided into 3 plus 1. What are the 3? Akara. Akara means the letter A. And Ukara, the letter U. And Makara, the letter Ma. Now, to understand it, we need to discuss just a little bit about the Sanskrit language. Sanskrit language is a very special language, and it has certain aspects which are very unique to this language. It's a very beautiful language also. One of the important features of Sanskrit that makes it very concise is what is called Sandhi rules. There is a set of rules that govern the connection between letters. In Sanskrit, when 2 consonants or 2 vowels or consonant and vowel meet, many times they change. They give up their original form and they change into something else. I will give you a few examples that you know. For example, the word namas. Namaha. Namas means prostration. But when namas is written namaha, better to say, is written na, ma, and then there is a visarga, is a particular letter. This visarga, when it is coming before a soft consonant, it is changing to O. O. For example, Om Namo Narayanaya. So we have the same word, Namaha, but it is coming before the soft consonant Na. Therefore, it is changing to O. So we get Om Namo Narayanaya. It is not a different word. It is the same Om Namah Shivaya. Okay? When it is coming before a sibilant, before Sha of Shiva, it stays as a visarga. So it is Om Namah Shivaya. Basically, this visarga before Sha is pronounced as another Sha. So actually, we don't say Om Namah Shivaya. This is not correct. It is more like Om Namash Shivaya. But this Sha is connected. It becomes like double Sha. So Om Namah Shivaya. No, this is the right pronunciation for this mantra. Om Namah Shivaya. It is double Sha. But you see that according to the letter that comes later, there may be some changes. For example, we say Sat, Chit, and Ananda, right? But when Ta is coming before A, it is changed into Da, into the letter D. From T, it is changed into D. So instead of saying Sat, Chit, Ananda, we say Sachidananda. You know, you don't say Sachitananda, you say Sachidananda. It is with D, not with T. Like this, there are certain rules, there are 39 or something rules that govern this connection between letters, and they cause letters to change. And this is one of the challenges in reading Sanskrit. When you read the shloka in Sanskrit, you have to know all these rules very well, because it will be written with the rules, and when you read, you have to redo it. You have to open it while reading, because otherwise you cannot stop in the middle of the reading. You know, so here we had Soya Matma Adhyaksharon Karo Adimatram. So when you read it, you have to know all the sandhis in order to be able to read, to stop. So Soya Matma, it is Saha, Ayam, Atma. So the sandhi rules make it sounds like one continuous, Soya Matma. Okay? Now, there is one particular sandhi rule that two vowels cannot follow one another. In Sanskrit, two vowels are not following one another. When we have Om, the Upanishad is telling us Om is originally made up of three parts, A, U, and Ma. I'm sure all of you have heard about it before, that Om is originally A, U, Ma. Therefore, there are people who say Aum. But according to Sanskrit, it is violation of the Sanskrit rules to say Aum, because two vowels cannot come together. When A meets U, it is being changed. Both of them are gone. And instead we say O. Okay, that's why we don't say Aum, we say Om. The mantra is Om. Swami Dayananda Saraswati had a funny story about this. He says there's some ashrams in India that people, they say Aum. He went to one ashram and he was hearing they are doing Aum. So he asked them, why are you doing this? They say, no, this is the correct pronunciation. Then he says the next morning he was sitting there in the office and he heard Aum. And he looks out, he sees this dog. Dogs is doing Aum. So he starts laughing. So somebody asks him, why are you laughing? He says, you see, I don't know whether you have learned from the dog or the dog have learned from you. Yeah. Because it is not correct. It's violation of the Sanskrit language. Anyway, so now you understand. So we have Om is being divided into three letters, but it doesn't mean that we pronounce the three letters. The A and U, when they meet, they merge together and they turned into O. Okay? So this is what the mantra is saying. And now we'll see what Shankara says. The same self is adhyakshara, that which subsists in the syllable and which is described laying stress on the name is called adhyakshara. What is adhyakshara? He says we were talking about the self, but now we are talking about the self from the point of view which is putting more stress, more importance to the letters. So that is called adhyakshara. Adhi is a prefix. You know, in Sanskrit we have the basic noun, and when we add a prefix, it changes the meaning. And when we adhi means that which goes towards, pertaining to, that which is relating to. So adhyaksharam is adhi, aksharam. It is that which refers to akshara. So we talk about the same self, the same atma that we talked about divided into four parts, but now we're putting stress on the division into letters. That's what Shankara explains. What is then that syllable? What is that syllable which is the self from the point of view of Adhyakshara? Explanation follows. It is Om. That same Om, when divided into quarters, becomes Adimatra. So now Adimatra means that which puts stress, that which is putting importance, giving importance to the matras. The matras means the measures, the different divisions. So that same Om, when it is divided into quarters, into 4 parts, it is called Adimatra. That which subsists in letters is called Adhimatra. Okay? That which subsists, how? Those quarters of the self are the letters of Om. Which are those letters? They are A, U, and Ma. Okay, Shankara simply explained the mantra. He says that the mantra is giving us the connection between the different parts of the Om and the different parts of the self, as we discussed earlier in the Upanishad. Now we are going to start this division. This is mantra number 9. Please repeat after me. Jagaritasthano Vaishvanaro Akaraha Pratama Matra Aptehe Adimatvat Va Apnoti Havai Sarvan Kaman. Okay, Havai Sarvan Kaman Adishcha Bhavati Yaevam Veda Jagaritasthano Vaishvanaro Akaraha Prathama Matrapteradimatvatvapnoti Havai Sarvan Kamanadischa Bhavati Yaevam Veda. Jagaritasthano. We have already heard this in mantra number 3. Jagaritasthana, that which is rooted, based in Jagrat. Jagrat means in the waking state. Who is that? You remember? This is Vaishvanara, right? Vaishvanara is the Jagaritasthana. So he says Jagaritasthana Vaishvanaraha. So that Vaishvanara who is rooted in the waking state, what is pertaining to what part of Om? Akaraha. He is relating to the A, the letter A within the syllable Om. This is the Prathama Matra. This is the first part. The first part of Om is corresponding to the first part of the self, Jagaritasthano Vaishvanara. Okay? Aptehe adimatvatva apnoti havai sarvan kaman adishcha bhavati yaebam veda. So, what is the connection between A, which is the first part of Om, and Jagat or Vaishvanara? The connection is aptehe, it is all pervading. Both of them are all pervading. We are going to see how and why. And then he says, Adishcha va bhavati. And also because they are adihi. Both of them are first. Because they come first, they have some similarity. The similarity between A as the first letter of Om and Jagrat as the first pada in the 4 parts of the self. Now, what happened to a person who knows it? Ya evam veda, one who knows it. What happens to him? Havai sarvan kaman adishcha bhavati. Such a person he's going to fulfill all his desires. All his desires, he is accomplishing all his longings. What is this? This is called the stuti. This is a very Vedic style that when they want to show that something is very valuable, they give they describe a very wonderful result that will come for somebody who knows it. And usually also they will tell about the terrible fate of somebody who doesn't know it. But in this case they just say the stuti. Stuti means the praise. When we say the censoring of the opposite, it is called ninda. So here there's only stuti, there is no ninda. They say somebody who knows this, all his desires will be fulfilled. Now Shankara says, he who is Vaishvanara, seated in the waking state, is A, the first letter of Om. Okay, so the first letter of Om, A, is connected to Vaishvanara, which is the first pada, the first part of the self. Owing to what common feature? What is the connection between these two? That is being stated owing to pervasiveness, aptehe, aptimatvat, being all-pervading. How? All speech is pervaded by the sound A, as evidenced by the Shruti. The sound A is verily all speech. There is a verse in the Aitreya Aranyaka that is saying that the sound A is all speech. Now in Sanskrit letters, A, the vowel A, is the first among all the 50 letters. So in that sense, it is also including everything. In another sense, from the sense of sound, Sanskrit is very scientific language, and all the sounds, they are very scientifically divided. If you learn the table of letters in Sanskrit, it is very, very interesting. It teaches you so much about sound. When we say A, we open the voice tracks completely. There is nothing obstructing, there is nothing and there is no any deviation, any change in the vocal tracks. Everything is completely open. Okay, every other letter is somehow either closing like k, p, t. These are all the consonants, or the vowels u, e, I. These are all different changes that we do in the mouth or in the throat, in various parts of the soundtrack in order to create those sounds. But when we say A, everything is just open. So in this sense, A is including everything. Everything is included within the sound A. Okay? And what about Vaishvanara? Vaishvanara is also all-pervasive. In what sense? Vaishvanara is including all the entire waking world. It includes the sun and the stars, and the whole universe is included within Vaishvanara. When we talk about Taijasa or Pragya, they are internal, they are inside, they are not including everything. So in this sense, Vaishvanara is also pervasive, all-pervasive. Therefore, there is a similarity between the two. Similarly, the whole universe is pervaded by Vaishvanara as proclaimed by the Shruti. The heaven indeed is the head of this Vaishvanara self. This is from the Mandukya Upanishad. We have seen it, right? When we talked about the Saptanga, the 7 limbs, right? When we say that Vaishvanara has 7 limbs and 19 mouths, right? So we read this verse, so he's bringing it again. He says, this is where Vaishvanara is described as all-pervading. And we have explained the unity of the name and the object indicated by it. that which has a precedence, Adi, is called Adimat, i.e. the first. Just as the letter A is the first, so too is Vaishvanara. So Shankaracharya is here reminding us the connection between the letter and or the sound or the name and the object that it denotes. They are not really different. It says we have explained the unity of the name and the object indicated by it. So when that which has the precedence of Adi, it says Adi in Sanskrit means that which comes first. Adimatvat is called Adimat, the possessor of Adi, i.e. it is the first. So here also in this mantra he says Aptehe Adimatvatva Apnoti Habai Sarvan Kaman. Adimatvat means both of them has a presidency, both of them coming first. In what sense? Because of this common feature, Vaishvanara is identical with A. The fruit that, okay, he doesn't explain directly, but he says that Vaishvanara is the first part among the four parts of the self. Okay? And earlier in the Upanishad, he explained also why it is coming first. It is coming first because only from Jagrat, only from waking state, we know all the three states. You remember we mentioned it. When you are awake, you know about dream and sleep also. When you dream, you don't know about waking state and about sleep. And when you sleep, you don't know about the other states. Therefore, he put it at the first. So Vaishvanara has the presidency. It is Adi, Adimatvat. Both of them are coming first. And also the letter A is coming first in the mantra Om. So because both of them coming first, they are connected. Shankaracharya is simply trying to show us the connection between these two parts, the matra and the pada. Okay? The fruit that accrues to the knower of this identity is now mentioned. What is going to happen to a person who knows this, who understands the connection between the first matra and the first pada? The first matra refers to the letter A, and the first pada refers to Vaishvanara, to the waking state, the self in the waking state. What happens to a person who understands and knows their connection? He verily accomplishes all longings and becomes the first among the great, who knows thus, i.e. knows the identity already explained. So Shankara simply explains in simple words what the Shruti is saying. He says such a person who knows this accomplishes all his longings and becomes the first among the great. He becomes a great personality. Okay? You can see when he says such a person accomplishes all his longings, that refers to aptehe, that refers to the all-pervasiveness of both of them. Both of them are all pervasive in the same way all his desires are fulfilled. And because both of them coming first, a person who knows it, he becomes the first among the great persons. So this is the connection. Okay? Now we go to mantra number 10, and we see about Taijasa. Swapnasthanas Taijasa Ukaro Dvitiya Matra Utkarshat Ubhayatvat Va Utkarshati Havai Jnana Samtatim samanascha bhavati nasya abrahmavit kule bhavati ya evam veda. Okay. Swapnasthanaha, that which is based in the dream state. What is the name of that part of the self? Taijasa. Okay, Taijasa is that part of the self which is connected with the dream state, which is based in dream. And that is connected to what part of the Om? To Ukara. Ukara means the letter U. Okay, the first part of Om is U, and it is connected to Taijasa. This is Dvitiya Matra. This is the second letter, the second part. Utkarshat Ubhayatvat means that owing to the similarity of excellence or the intermediate position. Okay, so here also he is given two reasons for the connection between U and Taijasa. What is the first one? Owing to the similarity of excellence. Both of them are very special. U and Taijasa are very special. In what way? We will see when we read Shankara. And another connection between the two is that both of them are coming in the middle. Okay? Dream is coming in between waking and sleep, and U is coming in between A and Ma. Okay, it is quite simple, right? Now he says, what happened to a person who knows this? Such a person sahavai jnana samtatim samanascha bhavati na asya abrahmavit kule bhavati ya evam veda. For such a person who knows this, first of all, he advances the bounds of his knowledge. Jnana samtatim. His knowledge becomes very vast. He knows so much. And the second benefit is na asya abrahmavit kule bhavati. In the family of such a person, kula means the family. So in the family of such a person, there will never be born a person who is abrahmavit, who doesn't know Brahman. In other words, everyone in his family is going to be the knower of Brahman. Again, this is a form of stuti, of praising. Say, listen, if you just know it, it will be so wonderful. This is the idea of the Veda. Shankaracharya says, he who is Taijasa, seated in the dream state, is U. Okay? So the part of the mantra Om, the second part, which is U, is connected to Taijasa, the second letter of Om. Owing to what common feature? What is the connection between U and Taijasa? That is being stated. Owing to excellence, Utkarshat, because of excellence. The letter U is more excellent, as it were, than the letter A. Shankaracharya doesn't really explain it, but it says U is more excellent than A. You can say that A is so simple. It's just A, open. But U is already, you are creating something special, so it is more excellent. That much he says. He doesn't explain more. Similarly, Taijasa is more excellent than Vishva. So Taijasa, which is the self in dream, is more excellent than Vaishvanara, who is the self in waking state. Why? Maybe we can give all kinds of explanations. Maybe in dream you can do things that you cannot do while being awake. Right? You can fly, you can change your form, you can do all kinds of stuff in dream that you cannot do while you are awake. Therefore, it says it is more excellent. Or now he gives the second option. You remember Utkarshat Ubhayatvat. Ubhayatvat means both of them are coming in the middle. Or it may be due to the intermediate position. For the letter U comes in between the letters A and Ma. Similarly, Taijasa comes in between Vishva and Pragya. Therefore, the alliance to both constitutes the common feature. Okay, very simple. Shankaracharya, when in such matters, he doesn't go and start to give all kind of theories, and he just says simply what the Upanishad. He just repeats in a simple way, in a simple words, what the Upanishad is saying. Okay, he's not very mystical, Shankaracharya. He's very grounded. He just repeats what the Upanishad says. The result that accrues to the knower is being said. Now, what is going to be the fate of such a person who knows this? He verily advances the bounds of his knowledge. He becomes equal, or even for even the foe. He becomes equal, for even to a foe he is not an object of envy, as he is not to his friends. So he says such a person becomes so excellent, not only his friends are seeing him as a great, also his enemies, and they are not envy of him. In the family of the man who knows thus, one who is not knower of Brahman is never born. That's what he says. It's so wonderful. And this is all Shankaracharya has to say about it. Now, 11. Okay, mantra number 11. Sushupta sthana pragyo makaras tritiya matra mitera piter va minoti hava idagum sarvam apitischa bhavati ya evam veda. Sushupta sthanaha pragyaha makaraha. So that which is based, which is rooted in sushupti, that which is rooted in deep sleep, is called pragya. And it is corresponding to makara. It is corresponding to the letter ma. This is tritiya matra. This is the third letter. Mitera piter va minoti. It says, because of his being the measure or the entity wherein all become absorbed. Okay, this is like the end, and everything is being absorbed into both of them. This is the connection between the two. Okay, he says there are two reasons. One of them, that both of them, ma and pragya, both of them are the measure. We will see what is the meaning. They are the measure. And the second is that both of them are that into which everything is absorbed. Okay, we are going to see that too. Then he says, Hava idagum sarvam apitischa bhavati evam veda. So He who knows this measures all this and absorbs all. One who is able to understand this last part, the connection between ma and pragya, such a person measures everything and he absorbs everything. Okay, now we will see Shankaracharya will explain to us the meaning. He who is pragya, seated in the state of deep sleep, is the letter ma, which is the third letter of Om. Owing to what common feature? What is the connection between the two? That is being said. This is the common feature here. On account of measuring, for the meaning of the word miti is to measure. Vishva and Taijasa are measured as it were by pragya on account of their absorption and emergence during dissolution and creation. Even as barley is measured by prastha, which is a kind of measure. Okay, here he is saying something very interesting. The state of sushupti, of deep sleep, is considered to be pralaya. Pralaya means dissolution. Because the waking and the sleep are dissolved into the deep sleep. As we said, when we discussed about sushupti, about deep sleep, we discussed this, that this is the base for both of them. So both of them are emerged from pragya, emerge from deep sleep, and they submerge back into deep sleep. On the cosmic level, we have cycles of creations. I think I mentioned that too in the beginning of the course, that there are cycles of creation. The world manifests, or the world is being created, it exists for some time, and then it dissolves back into the avyakrita. We have learned it before, into the unmanifested. And then out of that unmanifested, again the world manifests, and there are cycles of creation. That unmanifested state in between two creations, it is also pralaya. It is similar, it is corresponding to the deep sleep state. You can say it is the cosmic deep sleep state. Okay? So the time of dissolution between two creations is the cosmic deep sleep state. It is the cosmic prajna. Now, out of dissolution, creation comes, it exists, and again it goes back, it merges back into the unmanifested. So in this sense, the unmanifested is the measure that measures creation. It is bordering creations on both sides. And deep sleep is bordering waking and dream from both sides. So it is giving measures. This is the idea. This is what Shankara is explaining. When the Upanishad says this is the miti, this is the measure, it means that this is giving the borders, this is giving the, because everything comes out of it and emerges back into it. So that creates the measurement. Similarly, when the utterance of Om ends and begins afresh, the letter A and U merge into and emerge from Ma, as it were. Om, Om, Om. So in this sense, when you repeat many times the Om, the A and U, which are changed into O, they kind of coming out of M, and they go back into M. Om, 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 something like this. So the idea is that out of the Ma, they come and they go back. Okay, this is the idea. Or, now he is giving the second reason for the connection between them that the Upanishad is giving. The common feature may be on account of absorption. Okay? Apiti means dissolution. i.e. getting into oneness. For during the utterance of Om, the sounds A and U become one, as it were, with the last letter M. So he says there is kind of absorption. A and U, when you repeat Om, the A and U, they are kind of absorbed into the Ma. Okay, into the letter Ma. So this is the idea. Similarly, Vishva and Taijasa become one with Pragya during deep sleep. So when you get into deep sleep, both the waking state and the dream state are absorbed into the deep sleep. Vaishvanara and Taijasa are absorbed into Pragya. This is what he says. Therefore, owing to this common feature also, there is the identity of Pragya and the letter Ma. The result that accrues to the knower of this being said, he measures all this universe, meaning he knows its real nature. We said such a person measures all this. He says, he who knows thus measures all this. What is the meaning measure all this? Means he become a knower of everything. Okay? Meaning he knows the real nature of everything. He also becomes the place of dissolution of the universe, i.e. the self in the state of causality. Okay? So we said that the deep sleep, the Pragya, the Sushupti, is the cause for the other two states. You remember? We said that the other two states are coming out of that. So that self, which is the cause for everything else, for all the other, this is Pragya. And a person who knows the connection between Pragya and Ma, he is being connected with the cause of everything. He himself becomes the self which is the cause for everything. This is the idea. I.e. the self in the state of causality. Here the mention of the subsidiary results is to eulogize the chief means. Now Shankara is talking about all the last three mantras. He says all the stuti, all the praising that we have seen for a person who knows all these three, it is just to eulogize it, to show that this is very valuable, to show that it is really something that a person should know. Because if you remember in the beginning, the Upanishads told us, Sa Atma, Sa Vigyeyaha. This is the self and this should be known. You have to know, to understand this division and this distinction. So in order to eulogize it, the Upanishad is giving us the results. And he says these are subsidiary results. This is not the main result. What is the main result? Advaita Bhava. You remember? That was the purpose of the whole Upanishad. Realization of non-duality. So what is the main result here? Self-realization. But he is giving us also subsidiary result as a stuti, as a way of praising that it is so valuable and so important. Okay? Now Gaudapada is explaining more of this stuff, but we are going to our last mantra. Mantra number 12. Amatraschaturtho Avyavaharyaha Prapanchopashama Shivodvaita Eva Omkaratma Eva Samvishati Atmanatmanam Yaevam Veda Amatraschaturto Avyavaharya Prapancho Pashama Shivo Dvaita Evam Omkaratma Eva Samvimshati Atmanatmanam Yaevam Veda. This is the last mantra of the Upanishad, and this is talking about the last part, and this is Amatra. Amatra means that which has no measure, that which has no letter corresponding to it. Om includes 3 letters and also Amatra, another measure which is beyond the letters. Om is not only the 3 letters, Om also has something which is beyond the 3 letters. And this is called Amatra. And this is Chaturtha. Chaturtha means the 4th one. And it is Avyavaharya. It is beyond apprehension to ordinary means. It is not Vyavahara. It is not something that you can comprehend with your senses. It is beyond any comprehension. And it is Prapancho Upashamaha. It is where the all manifested reality is being Upashama, is being dissolved. It is lying beyond the range of multiplicity. Okay? The cessation of the phenomenal world. This is the translation. And it is Shiva, auspicious. You remember we have already had all these adjectives when we described the fourth pada. You remember? When we talked about the 4th pada, we already said all these adjectives. And so it is Shiva, it is auspicious, Advaita, it is non-dual, Evam Omkara Atma Eva. It is thus, in this way, Eva, in this way, Om is certainly the self. In this way, Om is certainly the self. Eva Omkara Atma Eva. Indeed, Omkara is nothing but the self. Samvishati Atmana Atmanam Yaevam Veda. So a person who knows thus enters the self by the self. A person who knows all this, who is able to know the 4th matra, which is Amatra, the 4th pada, and the connection between them, such a person knows the self by the self. Shankaracharya says, Amatra, that which has no matra, that which has no parts. That partless Om, the 4th, is Turiya, the absolute self, beyond comprehension to ordinary means, owing to the annihilation of speech and mind, which are the forms of the names and the objects indicated. So that Amatra is the last part, and it lies beyond all comprehension, beyond the names, beyond everything. But this is the Turiya, this is the self, this is the ultimate truth. It is the final limit of the negation of the world, the auspicious and the non-dual. He is explaining all these adjectives that we have already seen, so I don't want to go again into them because our time is up. Om, as endowed with the 3 letters and as used by one with the knowledge spoken above, is the self itself endowed with 3 quarters. He's saying now we are getting, you remember in the beginning I told you that this Upanishad is about a meditation, it's a meditation. Now we are getting to it. Now in the very last, we're getting to understand what is this meditation. Om endowed with the 3 letters as used by one with the knowledge spoken above. When you repeat Om in meditation, with the knowledge that we have learned here about the different divisions and the way it is corresponding, and Vaishvanara and Taijasa and Pragya, with all this knowledge, is the self itself endowed with the 3 quarters. Such a person, when he knows that Om is connected, is the self itself, and it is the self is the self itself endowed with three quarters. He who knows this, the person who knows it, enters into his own supreme self. This meditation, which is coming with the knowledge that we have learned here before, is causing a person to enter his own supreme self. He, the knower of Brahman, who has perceived the supreme reality, has entered into the self by destroying the third causal state. Therefore, he is not born again, for Turiya consists in no causal state. A person who is attaining this Turiya through the meditation, such a person is transcending the causal state. You remember we said that ultimately pragya is the causal state. Such a person transcends it and is going into Turiya, into the fourth state. Because the causal state is destroyed, such a person is not being reborn again. In other words, such a person, all his samskaras are being destroyed, they are being burned out, and therefore there is no more karma for him to being reborn again. We see this topic a lot in the Bhagavad Gita, that the knowledge is that fire which burns all the karmic seeds, all the samskaras, and renders them impotent. They take all the power from them, and therefore such a person who gets the Turiya state is never reborn again. Consequent on the discrimination between the rope and the snake, a snake that was superimposed on the rope does not reappear before those men of discrimination as it did before, owing to the impressions of the past reflecting in the intellect. So a person who sees a snake is seeing it because of his past impressions of snakes. Okay, he has some earlier samskaras and that's why he sees it. But the moment he is realizing there is no snake here, it is just a rope, that snake is gone. He is no more seeing a snake. That snake and its power to scare you is over. It cannot attack you anymore. In the same way, a person who realizes that the whole world is nothing but manifestation of the one pure self, such a person is burning all the samskaras of ignorance, and he is never reborn again. To those sannyasis who are dull-witted or just mediocre, who adhere to the means of the practicants, who stick to the virtuous path, who know the common feature of the letters and the quarters as explained above, to them the syllable Om, if meditated on in the right manner, becomes the support for the realization of Brahman. This is now the punchline of the whole Upanishad. He says, the levels of practitioners is being divided into three. Lower practitioners, mediocre practitioners, and higher practitioners. Okay, there is Uttama Adhikari, means the higher aspirant. Madhyama Adhikari is the middle, and the Adhama Adhikari is the lowest one. The Uttama Adhikari, one who is the highest level of practitioner, he doesn't need this. For him, he's basing himself in the self, and that's it, it's over. But for others, who are either mediocre or lower level, they need some aid. They need a process to purify the mind and to prepare themselves. For them, the knowledge of the Upanishads, when it is practiced in meditation, becomes the means for realization of the self. Most people, most practitioners, they are at best the lowest level, or sometimes mediocre, medium level. Very, very rare to find somebody on the Uttama Adhikari, on the higher level. Therefore, for most practitioners, this is a very valuable and very powerful. Shankaracharya says they are sannyasis. It is already these people are renunciates. We can argue whether sannyasis means somebody who got initiated or somebody who is renunciate in his heart. But this is not our subject here. The idea is that such a person, before being able to get benefit from this meditation, we have first to cultivate some level of viveka, discrimination, some level of vairagya, detachment, and all these means that are necessary. But then, when we have that basis, this meditation becomes very powerful. And what is the meditation? We repeat the mantra Om with the complete understanding of this Upanishad. And we do it not only while sitting on the asana cushion, we do it at all times. We look at the world, we look outside, we see this is Vaishvanara, this is my own self, which is manifesting as this. We wake up in the morning from the dream, we realize, oh, this was just Taijasa, this is my own self projecting this world of dream. Same with pragya. So my whole life becomes a meditation. And when I repeat Om, I meditate on this. I realize that the Om represents the three states, and the Amatra, that last part, which is measureless, which is without a letter, represents that which is beyond, represents the Turiya, the underlying state, which is the self. This is the meditation which is presented here in the Upanishad, and this is something that needs to be practiced. Okay, and this is also the end of our little course. I want to thank all of you for coming. It was a very great pleasure to have you. Again, I want to thank Swami Durgananda and Swami Shivadasananda for inviting me here. I really, really appreciate it, and I enjoyed my stay with all of you. Thank you very much. Now we will take a moment of silence and the final mantras. Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityor ma mritam gamaya Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us repeat also the Shanti mantra, okay, for conclusion. Om Bhadram Karane Bhishrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshabirya Jatraha Stirairangairstushtuvagumsastanubhir Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swastina Indro Vriddhashravaha Swastina Pusha Vishvavedaha Swastina Starkshyorarishtanemihi Swastino Brihaspatir Dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Bolo Shri Sadgurudev Swami Sivananda Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Sadgurudev Swami Sivananda Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Namah Shivaya.
lactose offense, the lactose offense, the lactose offense, the lactose offense.